Hey, welcome into another edition of 4 Minutes on Friday. Wanted to touch on something that I had referenced several weeks ago from Edwin Friedman's final book, his unfinished book, A Failure of Nerve. If you're not familiar with Friedman, he's kind of the father of family systems theory, and just has a wealth of knowledge for how relationships impact our daily lives. In particular, his focus was on the family, but there is tons of applicable information and knowledge that applies to any organization that relies on relationships and works side by side with other people. So I'll put the link to the there's a synopsis that is really pretty spectacular. It's a PDF. I'll put that in the link in the description as well. So if you want to check that out, you can. One thing that I have found incredibly helpful for me is early on in that book and the reading of the synopsis, he talks about gridlocked systems. And let me just read for you just a one-sentence piece from the book. He says, gridlock systems are characterized by an unending treadmill of try harder instead of reframing questions. When I first heard that phrase, reframing questions, it was a bunch of years ago with a really good friend of mine, and she works with families and infant mental health and all of those all the things that kind of work involves. And when I heard that, I thought, well, that is a really interesting way to think about issues or problems that we come up against, is to reframe the question, what is really going on here? Because a lot of times we end up treating symptoms rather than causes. So XYZ is happening and it's creating this result, and we just focus on the result instead of getting to the issue of why XYZ happened. And that's really some of what Friedman is talking about here. There's a lot more that we could apply and talk about here, but one of the things for sure that he's surfing here is that we have this tendency, this pattern of doing the same thing again and again, hoping to get different results. And we all know the quote from Einstein that doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results is a recipe for insanity. And yet, that is where most of us end up spending our time. That's why Friedman refers to it as an unending treadmill, because the treadmill doesn't go anywhere. It will get your heart rate up, it'll give you a good workout, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't accomplish anything other than you staying in the same room that you started and getting a workout. But if you want to go somewhere, you're not getting on the treadmill. I would encourage you to be as honest as possible. I know this is difficult, and again, I don't say this from a place of expertise like, hey, just follow me because I know what I'm doing here. I will openly admit that I don't always know what I'm doing. So I don't say this from a position of arrogance or accomplishment, but be willing to be open and honest with yourself, as hard as that is, and say, am I kind of caught in a gridlock? Am I doing the same things again and again, hoping for different results? And if the answer to that, let's just put it this way, if hesitation to even answer that question probably means that, at least in part, yes, you're caught in a gridlock system. You're on the treadmill. Be willing to admit that to yourself. That's probably the most important thing. So admit it to yourself that you're in a gridlock. You are on the treadmill. But also be willing to examine, okay, what caused me to fall into the gridlock? What causes me or creates the opportunity for me to get back on the treadmill, hoping that it will take me somewhere, knowing really that it won't. This is not easy. This is something that I talk about all the time in church world. Self-examination is very difficult. It is often painful. But if you are going to become the person that God has created you to be, we have to be willing to be honest with ourselves. We can have somebody else tell us the truth all day long, but if we don't hear that truth and take it into our hearts and allow it to change us, change who we are, that we reflect more fully who God created us to be, we're on the treadmill. All right, we're over our time. See you next week.